The Major League Baseball season is finally here, with the Yankees and Nationals set to kick off the 60-game season later today. What is up, everyone? This is Kevin, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I'll be giving you guys my predictions for the 2020 MLB season, including division winners, MVP winner, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, and more. Before we get this video underway, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. That would be much appreciated. So without further ado, let's hop right into these predictions. So we'll start out in the American League East. I have the Baltimore Orioles finishing in last place. Not much to say here. Not a ton of talent on their roster, and they are going to be one of the worst teams in the league. Finishing in fourth might be a surprise to some, but I have the Boston Red Sox. After Chris Sale having to undergo Tommy John surgery, them trading David Price, their rotation is very thin right now. Their ace is Eduardo Rodriguez with Nate Eovaldi as a 2, and a guy named Ryan Weber is their number 3 starter. I really haven't heard much about Weber. I don't think their rotation is good at all. Their lineup is nice with Rafael Devers, JD Martinez, Xander Bogaerts, and Andrew Benintendi. However, I think their pitching is really going to let them down this season, and they're going to finish in 4th place. Finishing in 3rd is the Toronto Blue Jays. I love their young core of players with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio, and Nate Pearson. However, I think they're still very young and not quite ready to compete, so I have them finishing in 3rd place. Their future is very bright, though. Finishing in 2nd place might also be a surprise to some. I have the New York Yankees. I think a lot of people expect them to finish in 1st place in the division and potentially win the World Series. However, I just don't think they can stay healthy. They haven't for a couple of years now. I think guys like Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton are just so big, and they have so much torque and violence in their swing that they just can't hold up and stay healthy, especially a guy like Aaron Judge. I see a ton of torque in his swing, and it puts a ton of strain on his back, and he's a big guy, so I just don't have a ton of hope that he's going to stay healthy for the full year. So I kind of knocked the Yankees down into 2nd place. However, I will note that the Yankees and the Blue Jays, I think there's going to be a huge gap between 2nd and 3rd, as the Yankees and Rays really run away with the division. So I think there's going to be a huge gap there, and the Yankees are going to make the wild card. So as I just mentioned, I have the Tampa Bay Rays in 1st place. I've really liked the Tampa Bay Rays for the past few years, and I think this is finally the year that they break through and win the division. The Rays have a great rotation with Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Charlie Morton to go along with Ryan Yarbrough and Yanni Chirinos. They also got a really filthy bullpen with Nick Anderson and Jose Alvarado. And I think Nick Anderson is one of the most underrated relievers, closers in the league. I think people are really going to get to know him this year and see just how filthy his pitches are, because he is insane. Not to mention their great lineup. They've got future MVP candidate in Austin Meadows in the outfield, as well as Brandon Lau, who I think is a sleeper, a guy that a lot of people have been overlooking. And I think their international signing of Yoshi Tsutsugo is a good one. I think he's going to have a great year for the Rays. So look out for the Rays in the playoffs to make some noise and potentially go deep. So I think the Rays and Yankees, it's going to come down to the wire in the AL East, and it's going to be very fun to watch to see who wins the division. Moving on to the AL Central, the Detroit Tigers in last place. Not much to talk about here, not much talent on their roster. I don't think Casey Mize is going to come up this year, as they really aren't playing for much. Finishing in 2nd to last is the Kansas City Royals, kind of same situation as the Tigers. They've got a bright future, but currently their major league roster isn't great. However, I do like Jorge Soler, Adalberto Mondesi, and Whit Merrifield, and I think the Royals are headed in the right track. Their pitching rotation isn't great, but they've got a bunch of young arms ready to come up in the next year or so. Finishing in 3rd is the Cleveland Indians. I think a lot of people think they're going to finish in 1st place in the division, but I just don't see it. I do like Shane Bieber and Mike Clevenger in their rotation, and Lindor and Ramirez in their lineup. However, I don't think there's enough around them to have a ton of team success, and I have them finishing 3rd in the division. Finishing in 2nd is a team that used to always finish near the bottom half of the division, is the Chicago White Sox. Last year they had Jose Abreu, Edwin Encarnacion, and a breakout year from Yoel Moncada. Also rising star Eloy Jimenez, who I think is going to break out into the future superstar. And they really added a ton of talent to this year's roster with Luis Robert, who I think is a future superstar and he's going to be one of the best players in baseball in a few years. He's been hitting some insane home runs in their inter-squad games. So I think Luis Robert is a future superstar to go along with Eloy Jimenez. They also added catcher Yasmani Grandal to their lineup. I think he's a great signing. They added Nomar Mazara as well. Added Dallas Keuchel to the rotation to go along with Lucas Giolito and Renato Lopez. So I think they're going to have a great year. And the future is definitely looking bright for the White Sox. Once they get Andrew Vaughn and Nick Madrigal up, they're going to be a great team. Finishing in first place are the Minnesota Twins. They led the Major League Baseball in home runs last year, and I really love their lineup. A ton of power and all-around hitting. I also like their rotation, headlined by Jose Barrios and Jake Odorizzi, and I think they're going to go deep in the playoffs this year as well. And I think they're going to finish with one of the best records in the league because of the fact that they're playing most of their games against the Royals and Tigers and a Cleveland Indians team that I am not so high on. So I think the Twins are going to finish with one of the better records in the league. Finishing in last place in the American League West are the Seattle Mariners. They're not ready to compete this year, but I think next year they're going to be a team to watch out for once they call up Julio Rodriguez and Jared Kelenic. I think they're going to be a great team in the future. But for this year, add them in last. Finishing in fourth place are the Texas Rangers. They're a solid team, got a good rotation with Corey Kluber, Lance Lynn, and Mike Minor. Their hitting is all right with Joey Gallo, Shin-Soo Choo, and Willie Calhoun. However, it's going to be a very competitive AL West this year, and I have them finishing in fourth. Finishing in third, I have the LA Angels. Mike Trout finally gets the health he needs. He's got Anthony Rendon in the lineup to go along with Shohei Ohtani and Albert Pujols and potentially Joe Adell later in the season, their top prospect. However, I don't think they have enough pitching to really compete this year. Andrew Heaney is their ace, but they really don't have much else after that. Shohei Ohtani will pitch. We'll see how he does, but their bullpen isn't great either, so I have them finishing in third in the division. Finishing in second, I have the Houston Astros. I really wrestled between the Astros and the A's, who's going to finish first in this division. I think it's going to be like the AL East. The top two teams are going to be super close, and it's going to come down to the wire to see who wins the division. But for this video, I have the Oakland A's winning the division, so I have the Astros in second. Despite the scandal, I think the Astros are still a very good team. They've got Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, Carlos Correa, Michael Brantley. So I think they're going to still do pretty well this year. Not to mention their young guys with Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker coming up. I think they're going to help out the team tremendously. A lot of people are making a big deal about them losing Garrett Cole. However, I think Lance McCullers coming back really helps them. And guys like Josh James and Jose Urquidy are sleeper pitchers to watch out for the Astros. Finishing in first place, I have the Oakland Athletics. They're a really overlooked team. If you look at their lineup, there aren't a ton of huge names. However, their guys just put up huge numbers. Marcus Semien last year finished top 3 in MVP voting. Matt Olson hit 36 homers in about 120 games, which is an insane number. Matt Chapman obviously is an all-star on defense and on offense, one of the bright stars with the A's. They have also got Ramon Laureano, who I think is a future 2020, potentially 30 homer, 30 steal guy. And not to mention a guy named Mark Canha, who I feel like a lot of people don't really know about. Do me a favor and look up Mark Canha's stats from last year, and I think you'll be surprised at how well he did. This is the story of the Oakland A's. There's a lot of guys that are being overlooked that put up big numbers last year. I also really like their catching prospect, Sean Murphy. I think he's going to have a great career for them. The pitching rotation is amazing as well with Frankie Montas, Sean Manaea, Jesus Luzardo, who is going to be a future star in the rotation, as well as AJ Puck. And they also have Liam Hendrick closing things out. So I think they have a great team as a whole, very well-rounded, just like the Rays. And I think they're going to go far in the playoffs and win the division. It's going to be close between them and the Astros, but I have the A's barely squeaking it out. Moving on to the National League, in the NL West, I have the Miami Marlins in last place. Not much to say here. The Marlins are the Marlins. Finishing in fourth are the New York Mets. I'm not a huge fan of the New York Mets. Besides Pete Alonso, they don't have a ton in their lineup. I'm not a huge Michael Conforto guy, and I think Jeff McNeil is an average to above average player. Nothing really special there with their lineup. So I have them finishing in fourth. They lost Zach Wheeler, and Noah Syndergaard was lost to injury. So they've really only got Jacob deGrom, and they've really showed that even though they have Jacob deGrom, they can't win games that he pitches in. So I really don't see how they're going to do well. So moving on to number 3 are the Philadelphia Phillies. They're another team I'm not a huge fan of. They've got Bryce Harper, who I think he performs well, but I think he's a little bit overrated. And they also have JT Realmuto and Rhys Hoskins, and their lineup really isn't that inspiring to me. So I have them finishing in third. And their pitching rotation, besides Aaron Nola, isn't great either. Plus, their bullpen is just non-existent. There aren't a ton of great arms in that pen, so I think they're finishing third. Finishing in second are the Washington Nationals. I have them barely missing out on the playoffs just because the NL East has to play the AL East this year in interleague play, whereas like the Central gets to play the AL Central, which is fairly weak at the bottom. So I think like a team like the Brewers are going to benefit in the wild card with that aspect. So I think the Nationals get a little bit unlucky here and barely miss the playoffs. However, I do think them losing Anthony Rendon is a big deal, but I think Carter Kieboom is going to fill in pretty nicely for them. He's a good young player. And I think Starlin Castro is going to have a pretty good year as well. So watch out for the Nationals. They could make a run, but if they don't win the division, I'm not quite sure if they can make the playoffs. Finishing in first are the Atlanta Braves. Their offense headlined by Ronald Acuna Jr. and Freddie Freeman is really going to take off this year to go along with Ozzie Albies and Austin Riley. Not to mention Mike Soroka leading the rotation, and their stud of a bullpen with Will Smith and Shane Green and Mark Melancon. I think they've really got a solid all-around team to make a deep run in the playoffs. Moving on to the NL Central, I've got the Pittsburgh Pirates finishing in last place. They've really got Josh Bell, Brian Reynolds, and not much else. So I've got them finishing in last place. Chicago Cubs, I have them in fourth. I will note that I think 1 through 4 in this division is going to be extremely tight. However, the Cubs have really been the same team since their World Series team, and they just really don't excite me, so I have them finishing in fourth. Finishing in third, I have the St. Louis Cardinals. The more I look at the Cardinals, the more intrigued I am at them, and I think they're actually a really good team to watch for. I think they're going to call Dylan Carlson a week into the season, and I think he's going to absolutely rake in the major leagues and be a Rookie of the Year candidate. I also love Paul Goldschmidt. He's a little bit on the decline, but I think he can have another good season, especially in a shortened season. And their pitching rotation headlined by Jack Flaherty is pretty good. Their bullpen is severely underrated. They have Carlos Martinez. If he's not starting, he'll be in the pen to go along with Giovanni Gallegos, who had a really good year last year, as well as Andrew Miller and Ryan Helsley, who I think is going to pitch well this year as well. Finishing in second of the Milwaukee Brewers, I think Christian Yelich and Keston Hiura are really going to spearhead their offense here, and they're going to do well. They don't have much pitching in their rotation besides Brandon Woodruff, but I think their offense is enough, and their bullpen with Josh Hader and Corey Knebel is solid, and I think they're going to finish well. Watch out for Avisaíl Garcia. I think he's going to have a solid bounce back year with the Brewers. In first place of the Cincinnati Reds, they've kind of been a trendy pick among everyone to win the division, and for some even to make or win the World Series. But I have them win the division here, and I think their lineup with Nick Castellanos and Eugenio Suarez, Mike Moustakas, among others, is really solid to go along with their outstanding rotation of Luis Castillo, Sonny Gray, and Trevor Bauer. I think the Reds are a really good all-around team and ready to win the division this year. In the NL West, I have the San Francisco Giants finishing in last place. Not much talent on their roster. Joey Bart, I don't think will come up this year despite Posey sitting out the season, so I have them in last place. Finishing in fourth, I have the Colorado Rockies. I love Nolan Arenado, Trevor Story. I think Sam Hilliard's going to have a great year as well. However, their pitching rotation is still the same. Their bullpen is still the same. They really haven't changed much, and I think they're going to finish in fourth. Finishing in third are the San Diego Padres. They've definitely got a bright future with Fernando Tatis Jr., Chris Paddock, And then minor leaguers, Mackenzie Gore and Luis Patino potentially coming up soon. I think Trent Grisham is going to have a great year, as well as Ty France. I think they're both very underrated. However, I have the Padres finishing in third in a very top-heavy West. Finishing in second, I have the Arizona Diamondbacks. I have them claiming a wild card spot. I think a lot of people are kind of overlooking the D-backs as well. I love their rotation with Madison Bumgarner, Luke Weaver, Zach Gallen, and I think they're really going to do well in that department with pitching. Their bullpen is all right with Archie Bradley. I do like their lineup with Ketel Marte, Starling Marte. I love Carson Kelly. Christian Walker is a solid hitter. David Peralta could have a bounce back year. So Nick Ahmed is a solid player as well. So I think they're going to have a good year and finish in second in the division. Finishing in first, I have the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're just a stacked team. I think they're going to have the best record in the major leagues. They can afford to send Gavin Lux back down to the minor leagues because they're so stacked. Cody Bellinger, I think, is on pace for another potential MVP year. I'll get into that later. So I think the Dodgers are really going to take off, especially with Mookie Betts in the fold and them signing him to an extension. So I've got the Dodgers finishing in first place, and they've got a ton of depth in their rotation too. And I think Walker Buehler is a future Cy Young winner. So we'll move on to my award winners for MVP in the American League. I will say that a lot of these award winners, I didn't want to go with the favorites. I kind of wanted to go with some creative picks and some under the radar guys. So in the American League, I have Shohei Ohtani. He is kind of a risky pick. He's struggled hitting and pitching in the spring training 2.0 during summer camp. However, I think Ohtani is going to do enough with the bat and be electric on the mound to get people excited about him again. And I think he's going to be such a valuable two-way player for the Angels, and he's going to win win MVP. In the National League, winning MVP, I have Ronald Acuna Jr. He almost put up a 40-40 season last year, and I think he's going to outpace Christian Yelich and Cody Bellinger just by a little bit to win the NL MVP. So Ronald Acuna, superstar, I think is going to win the MVP award. Cy Young in the American League, I really wanted to pick Garrett Cole, but he's pitching in a tough AL East, and he's going to have to face some good offenses in the NL East. So I have Shane Bieber winning the AL Cy Young. Shane Bieber last year was really outstanding. Shane Bieber went 15-8 with a 3.28 ERA and a 1.05 WHIP. He also struck out 259 batters, which was good for third in the league. Again, Shane Bieber is going to play most of his games against the Kansas City Royals and the Detroit Tigers. So I think he's going to have a field day with those teams. And they're going to play the NL Central, and I think he's going to do well against teams like the Pirates and the Cubs and the Cardinals. So I think Shane Bieber is going to win the AL Cy Young. I think this is more based on schedule and who he plays, or else I'd have Garrett Cole. But again, his schedule is a little tough, so I've got Shane Bieber here. Sticking with the Central theme, I've got Jack Flaherty winning the NL Cy Young. I absolutely love Walker Buehler, but I think the NL West is very strong offensively, and so is the AL West. So I think Walker Buehler might have to wait a year to win Cy Young. I think he might win Cy Young in 2021, but for 2020, I've got Jack Flaherty. His second half last year was insane. Overall for the season, Jack Flaherty last year went 11-8 with a 2.75 ERA, which is sixth in the majors, and a .97 WHIP with 231 strikeouts. I mentioned his hot end to the season. In his last 16 starts, Jack Flaherty posted a .93 ERA with a .69 WHIP and 130 strikeouts. So obviously Jack Flaherty had a hot stretch, and if he continues that hot stretch, he's going to have an insane season this year and potential record-breaking. Again, he'll play the AL Central a lot too with the Royals and Tigers, and he's going to dominate those teams as well as the Pirates. Moving on to Rookie of the Year in the American League, I have Luis Robert. If you check out some of my other videos on the channel, you know I am a huge Luis Robert fan. I think he is the next Ronald Acuna Jr. in baseball, and I think is a future superstar. There really aren't a ton of contenders in the AL besides Jesus Luzardo. So I think Luis Robert is really going to take off this year and cement himself as a superstar and up-and-coming player in this league. For the NL MVP, I really wanted to pick Gavin Lux, and I think he was a shoe-in, but he got sent back down to minor league camp and will probably miss about a week of the season, which Dylan Carlson will as well because they're going to mess with his service time. So I think now that Lux and Carlson are going to be on equal footing in terms of how many games they're going to play, I think Carlson might run away with NL Rookie of the Year. Carlson put up some big numbers in the minor leagues last year. He hit 292 with 26 homers and 68 RBIs in only 126 games. So I think Dylan Carlson is going to translate that success to the major leagues. Cardinals don't have a great outfield whatsoever, so I think he's going to get a lot of playing time out there. So moving on to the home run leaders in each division. In the AL, I have Matt Olson. Matt Olson hit 36 home runs in 127 games last year. I think he's really overlooked. I could pick easy picks like Aaron Judge or some of the other big home run hitters. However, I wanted to go a little under the radar with Matt Olson. I think he's got a good shot to lead the AL in home runs this year. Another kind of under the radar guy is Nick Castellanos. He only hit 11 home runs in 103 games with the Tigers in that huge ballpark. However, after being traded to the Cubs, he hit 16 home runs in 52 games in Chicago. And so I think Nick Castellanos moving to hitter-friendly ballpark in Cincinnati is going to have an amazing year and hit a bunch of home runs to lead the National League. So let's move on to my playoff predictions. For the wild card, it's going to be a very stacked game in the AL with the Houston Astros facing off against the New York Yankees. I ultimately have the Houston Astros coming on top. I don't think the Yankees are going to be healthy for that game. And I think the Garrett Cole, Justin Verlander matchup is going to be great. But I think the Astros offense is going to prevail. In the NL, I have the D-backs against the Brewers. I think the D-backs pull it out here with Madison Bumgarner leading the way and dominating the Milwaukee offense. Moving on to the division series, that leads to the Astros against the Twins. I think the Astros are going to be riding a hot streak and knock off the Twins, who have the best record in the AL. So I think the Astros are going to advance. And then moving on to the second matchup, two teams I really love, the A's and the Rays. I think the Rays are going to edge out the A's in this series by a close margin. But I think the Rays pitching and their lineup is going to really push them past the A's. In the National League Division Series, I have the D-backs and Dodgers. I think not really much of a question here. The Dodgers are so stacked, they're going to blow past most teams, so I have them advancing. And then Reds and Braves. I think this is where the Reds season ends. I have the Braves prevailing in this matchup and moving on to the NLCS. For the ALCS, I have the Houston Astros against the Tampa Bay Rays. This is going to be a very close game, a very close series. I think it's going to go 7, with the Rays barely pulling it out at the end. Plus, I really didn't want to pick a rematch of Astros-Dodgers, so I'm going to go with the Rays on this one. In the National League, Braves and Dodgers, it's going to be a close series as well. However, the Dodgers on paper just are such a dominant team that I have them advancing to the World Series to face off against the Tampa Bay Rays, and I have the Dodgers ultimately winning the World Series, finally getting over that hump and winning that trophy. I think the addition of Mookie Betts to go along with MVP Cody Bellinger, it's really going to push them over the top. Not to mention another great year by Walker Buehler. I think Clayton Kershaw could get over his playoff woes and really play a huge role for them as well. So the Dodgers always look good on paper. I think they're going to be the pick to win the World Series almost every year, and I think they're bound to do it one year. So I think this is the year in 2020 that the Dodgers will top the Rays in the World Series. So that'll be it for this video. Thank you for sticking through the video to the end if you watched up until this point. These are my predictions for the 2020 season. It'll be interesting to look back and see how many of these picks I got right and how many I got wrong. However, I think I'm going to get a lot more wrong than right, as are most of these types of predictions, but we shall see. So thanks for watching. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.